Our second documentary tonight is about Ron DiFrancesco. He is a Canadian. When the planes slammed into the World Trade Center towers last year, he became one of about 1,100 people trapped on one of the floors above the impact sites. One of 1,100. Today, he's one of 17 people in that group who is still alive. His story, as you can well imagine, is a compelling one, and it's a difficult one for him to tell. But he did tell it to our Joan Leishman.
You're riding all by yourself, you big girl? Yeah? You look great. How are you? Nice to see you.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Oh, good to see you.
How are you, Buster?
You got a frame of reference.
Hey, Scott.
They'll probably in a store.
I know.
How are you?
Well, I was looking at the pictures of
How tall are you getting?
For the past 2 years, Ron DiFrancesco, his wife Mary, and their 4 children lived in New Jersey. Ron was a successful broker in New York. But now they've moved back home to Toronto, almost exactly a year after the day that changed their lives forever.
You know, they need to rent a
How is your husband?
He's great.
Yeah.
Just great. Yeah. Thank God. He's good.
Oh, yeah.
How are you?
Oh,
How are you doing?
Lucky people. Lucky.
See you.
it's so nice to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How have you been?
You know, because the things you went through, oh, you must be lucky.
Yeah.
I am.
God.
Got somebody looking out for me. Thank you.
Yeah. And nobody knows how many died over there. Nobody.
Lots. So.
Too many.
At 8:46, September the 11th, when the first plane hit the Trade Center's Tower Number 1, Ron was working on the 84th floor of the tower right beside it.
We saw some smoke by the window and a quick flash. Everybody was, a little bit anxious, so ran over to the window, and we saw the impact of the first plane. At that point, most of the people decided that they would leave, They were there in '93, a lot of them, so, and them being Americans, knew about the terrorism, and so I had really no clue about it, and so I went back to my desk.
Ron phoned and said that, if I had heard anything about the World Trade, not to be alarmed. It was the other building, it was World Trade Center 1, and that his building wasn't affected and that he was fine. So not to panic, turn on the news and see what happened.
As it progressed, we went back to the window, and it was a pretty horrific sight. There were, there was a big fire and lots of smoke, and you could see people in the windows, and
Ron called back, and he said, it looks really bad there, Mary. There are people, jumping from the windows, and he said, it's really bad, and I think we're going to leave. And I said, okay, great. I still wasn't so worried for his safety. I just said, yeah, go, and you can call me. And when I hung up the phone, immediately the second plane hit. It was just a moment, and I knew he was there.
I was still on our floor when the plane hit the building. We got knocked flying. I was with a colleague of mine, and it felt like the building was going over, and we got thrown hard against the walls and everything. The ceilings came down and it went black, And at that point, my colleague was screaming for me, and I got him, and I grabbed him by the hand, and we just saw our way towards the stairwell and went in.
I just started to pray, and I just thought, I got to keep breathing, and he'll call me. He'll call me when he gets down, and I'll just have to wait. So I phoned this kid's school immediately and said, you know what's happened. Keep my kids away from the television.
But the televisions were already on at nearby St. Paul's School, where Toby and Julia DiFrancesco were students.
I caught 2 glimpses of the TVs in the other rooms. 20 minutes later, I was moving into my next class, and I started getting scared. My throat got all tight. And I remember I went over to my teacher and told her what I thought. And she said, we went down to the office wondering. My mom had called saying our dad was fine, even though she didn't know.
So I went into the office and I called my mom and I talked to her, and she was sort of crying, and I asked her what happened, and she said the building hijacked the plane, and the plane was hijacked and fell into the building. So she said, but Dad's okay, and but she's having trouble finding him. So I went back to class, and my teacher was very nice. She said, don't worry about homework or anything.
Inside tower number 2, Ron was making his way down the stairwell. When it became too hard to breathe, he and a small group turned back and headed up, climbing all the way to the 91st floor. The exits were locked, so they turned around and headed back down again.
You know, people were really having trouble breathing, so I had told my colleague and the other people to, lie down and get some air. And I was lying there for a bit, and the floor was damp and cold, and, and the smoke was filling up, and you couldn't really see much. But at that point, I just, I don't know, somebody was calling me and somebody was helping me. And I got up and just felt my way. I felt towards the stairwell, and the stairwell had caved in. And so I broke through some of the drywall to, try to look for a bit of light. And I saw a bit, so I scrambled down. I slid down the drywall and got down the flight of stairs. When I got down a flight, all the walls were burning. The paper on the drywall was burning. And I ran through that.
Ron raced down some 75 flights, meeting no one in the stairwell except for 3 firefighters going up. Finally, he made it to the ground floor and what he hoped would be safety.
It was a war zone. It was, there was debris and, dust and people everywhere. And I was panicked. I was really panicked at that point. And I wanted to get out. I just wanted to get out of there and run and run and run. And the the Port Authority security people told me I couldn't get out into the concourse because of the falling debris, and that I would have to go downstairs and get out through the concourse level. I saw a colleague of mine who was downstairs, and it was, quite remarkable for him to get there. He was a very sweet man, very big, and, had a lot of trouble walking. And I saw him in the courtyard, or in the concourse, in between the shops there. As I started walking, I looked out to Liberty Street, and I saw a huge fireball coming. I screamed at him to run.
The tower came crashing down. Someone, no one knows who, pulled Ron DiFrancesco unconscious from the rubble. It would be hours before his wife knew that he had made it out alive.
I got a call at about 1:30 from a nurse named Gary at St. Vincent's Hospital. And he said, you know, your husband's here, he's alive. And he told me where you were, where to find you, told me your phone number. And, you know, I just screamed, he's alive, he's alive. And, you know, it was amazing. But I was well aware of the fact that I was not alone in my wait for him. I knew there were so many people waiting to hear what I was hearing. So I immediately hung up the phone. He said he's got a gash on his head, but he seems fine. He's okay. And I hung up. I just said, call the next person.
But he was far from okay. At St. Vincent's Hospital's, doctors began discovering how serious his injuries were. In the meantime, Manhattan choked in chaos. Dust and debris from the two great towers filled the air. New Yorkers poured out of the city on foot. For those like Mary, desperate to get in, roads were blocked. It was the next day before she reached the hospital and found out how badly Ron had been hurt.
I phoned the nurses up there, and they said, if you can get yourself to St. Vincent's, we'll get you up here. He needs you. He's desperate to see you. He's terrified, and he's in really bad shape. And I said, what do you mean he's in bad shape? And I said, well, he's got burns all over his body. He's got a broken back. He's in a neck collar. He's not breathing on his own. I said, I thought he was coming home today. I was very nervous about seeing him. He looked horrible. He didn't look like anybody I knew. You know, he was bandaged from head to foot, and you could only see maybe a quarter size of each cheek, and that was all that was showing. His head was wrapped, his eyes were bandaged, his face, you know, and his head was so swollen. He was just not himself. So it was wonderful, because I knew he was there and I could touch him and, you know, talk to him and help him to feel better. But it was really frightening.
As New Yorkers tried to absorb their losses, Ron lay in the hospital. He had burns, a broken bone in his back, lungs damaged by heat and smoke. He remained unaware of the magnitude of what had happened, or just how very lucky he was.
And he asked about specific people, and I didn't tell him because it was too hard. He wasn't ready, and he got very agitated when he got any sense of what was going on. So I had to keep him calm and just sort of tell him the truth, but in a sort of guarded way. I just told him we didn't know about certain people, you know, and they were still working on it. So he had no sense of time passage, so it was easy to keep that truth from him.
After 11 days in hospital, Ron returned home to his family in Mahwah, New Jersey. There, his physical recovery went along remarkably well. With Mary at his side, Ron slowly came to know what had happened, and then began sorting through an agonizing web of emotions.
It took time to come to grips with those people he lost. He lost a lot of people there. People who sat as close as you and I are sitting. On a desk of 16 people, 8 people were lost, and 60 in his office altogether. So some people that we socialized with, and to take those deaths on one at a time would have been difficult enough, but to not be at your best and to try to cope with the loss of those people was very difficult.
Like someone had said, I went to war and I didn't ask to, you know. So how do you recover from what you saw and how you feel, you know? A lot of people think that, oh, you know, now that the year anniversary is coming up, everyone can get on with their lives. But for us, you know, it's constantly there. I don't know, you know, I imagine it won't, you know, be in my mind 24 hours a day, but now it's constantly there.
By spring, Ron's injuries were almost healed.
Keep going. I'm a lot better. I still have a sore back. I still have to get my burns dealt with.
Mending mind and spirit would take much longer.
Physically, I'm okay, I think. Mentally, we're still dealing with that.
Where are they living now?
One source of strength came from hundreds of cards and letters.
They're from friends, from home, from the community here, from grade school, from high school, people in Alaska.
The sense of caring and community they brought intensified Ron's first instinct to return home to Canada as soon as possible. But Mary persuaded him they needed to stay.
I had the feeling that we would have to stay and recuperate with people here, recuperate in this city with people who knew what had happened to us and what had happened to them, and go through the recovery process here where it was close at hand.
Part of that recovery for Ron was returning to work. In January, he began making the commute to New York and working part-time. By February, it was full-time, taking the train and then the ferry right back to the foot of Manhattan.
Some mornings are great, but other days it's panic sets in about getting on the train. Is something going to happen on the train? It's a bit nerve-wracking. I always check out which way, where to go, which is the best thing. If the boat was to blow up, then, if I jump in the water, I'll be okay. Or if I'm, I'm in a hallway, it's like, where's the exit? Or, if I'm in a building, where's the best way to get out? Where's in the subways? And, it's not a way to live, really, about, the best escape route or what if something happens. But when you come that close to death, I guess that's what you do, right? The towers were so very prevalent in the city and the skyline and stuff, and now I know exactly where they were and where they aren't now, and things keep running through my head.
There were constant reminders even on the short walk from the ferry to the office. He would pass the renowned sculpture of the globe that used to sit at the base of the trade towers and remarkably remained almost intact. And the new offices of Eurobrokers are just blocks away from where the towers once stood.
I just think if I didn't go back, I would have probably suffered more. But to go and see my colleagues who were still around, was important. And it's great healing with those people. Everybody's in, the same boat as I am. Most of those people were there that day, and they went through similar experience to me. Some got out before it happened, but to sit there and know that the guy to my right is gone and the three guys to the left are gone, it's tough. And so you go and you want to see familiar faces. I focus my attention on the job at hand, and the minute there's a lull in the day and there's something going on, then you start to think and you look around and there's a serious void, right? I think what it's changed in our office is that, everybody had the tough guy image and wouldn't hold back and bashing you and, being rough and stuff. And now everybody's, very warm, very concerned, like, to see guys hugging, and just saying, I'm happy you're around.
The triggers for his memories were everywhere. Each day, thousands crowded to the viewing platforms at Ground Zero just to look. Relatives, friends, others searching for a touchstone to help rebuild their fractured lives. It was even impossible to escape the street vendors hawking memorabilia, books, videos, T-shirts. Inescapable reminders that, in the end, made it impossible for the DiFrancesco family to stay.
I'll a separata.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Italy.
But it was more than that. Visits to New Jersey by family and friends would temporarily make things seem normal again, eclipse the loneliness for a short time, make it easier to forget. But it was clear that after a year, it was time to come home.
As the year progressed, we really found that we needed to be around our family and our friends. It was very tough for Mary to, in September she was by herself. And, she had a couple of friends here, but no one that, who could take care of her needs and the kids' needs and stuff. And, what family's like, it's very important to us.
Hi. Hey, Kate.
Ron DiFrancesco and his family have moved back to Toronto from New York, away from the daily reminders of all that's been lost, and home to family and friends.
Just in the front room there. In the kitchen.
For Ron, moving back is the next step in his recovery, discovering the new person he's becoming. For the whole family, it's a safe place to uncover just how September 11th has changed them all. For Mary, there's a deeper feeling of gratitude.
I have a sense that we have been spared a great deal, and that is very overwhelming for me day to day. I have been very lucky, and I, do my best to try to help out people who have not been so lucky. Knowing what I know, knowing that Ron was underneath those buildings when they came down, how can I not be thankful? How can I waste my time being angry? I was lucky beyond belief, and there's no room for anger because I was given his life.
For Toby and Julia, the world is now a much more uncertain place.
I'm not really as happy. I'm still thinking, what if it happens again? I see the world as a different place now. I see it as it's not all good, fun, happiness. There's still some bad things we have to look out for. Some things that we have to be more careful now. There's danger.
I have tried to teach them that it's not going to be like this every day. That this is not the way the world is going to be. That we'll have to trust. We'll have to trust that God is going to watch over us, and that there are a lot of good people in the world, and we focused on the good people who helped us.
For Ron, hardest of all is laying his demons to rest. He was the last person who worked above the crash site of Tower Number 2 to make it out alive. Finding the right measure of living with that legacy while remembering all those who were lost seems a distant future.
I'm not angry because I believe that, it's made us better and stronger in our relationship at home. And, I feel for my colleagues, but I believe they're in a better place. I'm just saddened for their families, for children to never grow up with their dads, to lose their mums. A good colleague of mine had 2 daughters, and never to take his kids to, swimming, to high school, to dances, to anything, He'll never be able to do that anymore. And I just think, he's in a better place, but, his family's robbed, and it's the pressure on his wife now to be, thrown into a single family and having to deal with that. And one of my colleagues, she was a single mother and she passed away. So her son at 14 is flying solo now. And
I was asking him how he's feeling, and he said he felt really upset, and sometimes he's felt mad and angry. And then he said that he missed a lot of his friends, and he didn't really talk about it much. We don't talk about it as long as anymore. We used to talk about it, but now we don't talk about it anymore.
He's a lot more gentle. He's not as tough. He cries a lot sometimes. It's really tragic. Like during church, the last few times, Christmas, there's this one song that really makes him cry. There's no greater love, says the Lord, than to lay down your life for a friend. And that's what, my dad didn't do that though. He knew he had to come home to us.
Guilty. I guess I do have a bit of survivor guilt, but it's the what if I would have done this, what if I would have done that, you know? What if I grabbed that person and yanked them down with me? What if I, you know, that's very tough. I am not sad that I'm alive, but I am, you know, very sad there aren't more of my colleagues with me. Sorry. I'm not a hero. I'm lucky, and that's it. I don't want the fame. I just want to get on with my life.
For The National, I'm Joan Leishman in Toronto.
The story of Ron DiFrancesco, who some believe was the last man out of the World Trade Center before it collapsed. Tomorrow, CBC Television and CBC News World will devote the entire day to remembering September 11th. We'll be on the air at 6 a.m. Eastern Time and continue right through to a special 2-hour edition of The National at the end of the evening. We'll have live coverage of the Canadian government's commemorative event in Gander, Newfoundland, and of special events in New York, at the Pentagon, and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where United Airlines Flight 93 crashed. We've put CBC News reporters at all those places to talk to special guests. We'll also have reporters spread through Canada to report on what has happened here in the last year at our borders, airports, high-rises, and seaports. You'll see some important artistic performances inspired by September 11th and hear the reflections of several notable Canadians.
President Hamid Karzai's government is firmly...
We'll talk to Patrick Brown, who was returned to Afghanistan.
You're okay, Jumper.
And to the commander of the Canadian Forces who fought there. Then, in the evening, lives lost. The stories of the 24 Canadians killed in New York, in the words of their families and friends.
I saw the second plane on TV going towards his tower, and Michael through the window, and it was oh no, and then all we could say was, "I love you, darling." Those were his last words, and I said the same thing, "I love you, darling." Hopefully he heard it.
That's followed by Untold Stories, Canada on September 11th.
So they explained to me the situation, that they could not communicate with this plane. We don't know where they're going. So he said, we might have to shoot them down. And I said, yes.
We're going to the nearest airport.
You'll see exclusive interviews with people at the highest levels of Canada's government and military, and learn for the first time what they were thinking on that day when they made the most crucial decisions of their lives.
I didn't know what was going to happen from one minute to the next in terms of some other city being targeted.
As we said, that will be followed by a 2-hour edition of The National. Here's a preview of what you'll see then. 1 year ago, they opened their homes and their hearts to plane loads of stranded passengers. Those travelers have never forgotten Newfoundland.
It just seemed very, very important to me to be back among these people who took such wonderful care of us.
Rex Murphy will have the story of a lasting friendship. Then, we'll have an interview with one of the most powerful people in the United States, National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice. What does that blanket of intelligence tell you about Osama bin Laden?
Unfortunately, not very much. I've been asked many, many times, do you think he's dead? Do you think he's alive? I have no idea.
A feature report with President George W. Bush's closest advisor. What's next for the war on terror? Plus, Alison Smith with the story of Brian Clark. The Canadian worked in the South Tower of the World Trade Center and was one of the few people to escape from above the impact floors. September 11th, a day to remember. We hope you can join us tomorrow, starting at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, remembering September 11th. I'm Peter Mansbridge. The National is next.